Welcome to Episode 5 of Des Moines Backstage, the Central Iowa Theater Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Bokart. Today we sat down with McKenna Dempsey, Natalie Grote, Nick Amundson, David Van Cleve, Sage Johnson, and Ryan Hensey, who are all involved with the Des Moines Young Artists Theater's production of James and the Giant Peach Jr., which runs October 14th through the 23rd at the Des Moines Social Club's Come and Go Theater. For more information on this production, you can visit dmyat.org. My co-host this episode is Samantha Arneson. This episode was recorded on Sunday, October 2nd at Des Moines on Stage. Now, let's go backstage.
Des Moines.
Des Moines.
Des Moines.
Des Moines.
Des Moines.
Des Moines Backstage.
Backstage.
Des Moines Backstage.
Des Moines Backstage.
Des Moines Backstage.
The Central Iowa
The Central Iowa
The Central Iowa
Theater Podcast.
The Central Iowa Theater Podcast.
Central Iowa Theater Podcast.
Des Moines Backstage.
The Central Iowa Theater Podcast.
Des Moines Backstage.
Des Moines Backstage, the Central Iowa Theater Podcast.
Welcome to Des Moines Backstage, the Central Iowa Theater Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Bokart. With me today, we have the cast and creative team of James and the Giant Peach Jr., presented by Des Moines Young Artists Theater. Emphasize the S on the artists. It is plural possessive, as David says. My co-host for today is Miss Samantha Arneson. How are you today, Sam?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Well, it is a pleasure to have you here. I think we've officially had more women than men as co-hosts, Woo-hoo! Which is, go ladies! Woo! And look at who we have interviewing here today. We have a good mix. All the ladies of the cast. It's the ladies' day here at Des Moines Backstage. But we do have 5 people we're talking to here today. So if you guys want to first just go around and introduce yourselves just so the audience knows who we're going to be talking to and mention your role as well.
Hi, I'm McKenna, and I play Mrs. Trotter. Hi, I'm Sage, and I am the spider.
Hi, I'm Natalie, and I am the assistant director.
I'm David Van Cleve, director.
I'm Nicholas Amundson, set designer and costume designer.
Well, thank you. How's everyone doing today?
Fantastic.
Pretty good.
Great. First question will be for David, just to kind of give us an overview about what the show is about. Just for me, I've never read the book, sadly. Didn't get out much as a kid. And apparently there's a movie, which I've also never seen. So
You should watch the movie. The movie's pretty fantastic, as is the book. Roald Dahl was always one of my favorite authors growing up, so I was obsessed with all of his books. In fact, a couple years ago for Christmas, my sister gave me his entire collection, which was one of the best gifts I've ever received. But the story is in true Roald Dahl fashion, so it's really kind of quirky, but everyone can relate to. It's about a little boy named James whose parents are tragically killed by a rhinoceros that escapes from the London Zoo. Typical behavior, for a 9-year-old. And then he finds out that he has these 2 long-lost aunts who are terrible, horrible, nasty people. He goes to live with them, and throughout a series of unfortunate events, develops a magic potion that turns a peach into a giant peach and turns little bugs into giant bugs. And he goes on a crazy adventure that goes across the ocean, an oceanic journey that includes sharks and seagulls and the Empire State Building and everything else.
Covers a lot of space. That's the word.
All in 90 minutes.
All in 90 minutes. So yeah, this is James and the Giant Peach Jr. For the people listening that don't know what the junior means at the end of a show, tell us a little bit about that.
So a junior show is a full musical shortened down into 90 minutes, specifically designed for child and youth performers. So in this production, we have 31 students ranging in age from 8 to 17, coming from about 16 different area high schools. So all the roles, including the adults, are played by students. And it's actually really about 80 minutes, but we're taking an intermission anyway, which makes it perfect for families, especially families with little children who want to experience theater for the first time. It's short, it fits in their attention span, and we still give them a break for their potty break.
So it's appropriate for all ages, you would say?
Absolutely. Good. You don't actually see the parents get trampled by the rhinoceros.
Oh.
We leave that to the imagination.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, that would be a little violent, I feel like that.
Well, Roald Dahl was actually, I was reading one of his biographies, and he was talking about how all of his stories include really gruesome elements, but he's really adamant about not showing it and not going into detail, because he doesn't believe that that we should shy away from talking about the dark aspects of life with students, but we don't necessarily need to shove it in their faces. So in our script, in the director's version, it specifically says it is imperative that we do not see the rhinoceros trample the parents, but we see the aftermath of the carnage.
Wow.
And that's something we took pretty seriously. Same with Sponge and Spiker's death. Spoiler alert.
How have you approached that with the kids that you're directing when it comes to that scene? 'Cause, I mean, is that a fairly dark scene? I assume they react to that pretty honestly.
It's kind of a dark scene, but it's also one of their favorites because they get to scream a lot. And these kids love to scream.
Well, we've got 2 of those screamers here, so tell us kind of about you guys' roles there, McKenna and Sage.
Well, in that scene, I am the mother being trampled.
That's fun.
So the beginning of the scene is a pretty happy scene, and it introduces the parents, and the emotions go downhill from there. It's a really fun scene to do, though, because of the roller coaster that it puts people through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I'm not actually in that scene, but being able to watch it, and I just kind of, that makes me understand why James is acting how he is and his perspective, and so it gives me the chance to show through my character, which is the spider, how, like, to help him through that. So yeah.
So is the spider a good person?
Yes.
Yeah, tell us about the spider. Like I said, I know nothing about it, so.
Well, as David was saying, there's these insects that grow larger from the magic potion, and we are kind of like James's family because he lost all his family and his aunts are really awful. So we kind of represent his family and we help him get through everything and just take him along the journey and be there for him. So.
And when you say the journey, I guess the journey of what? Of him trying to get from point A to point B? I guess I'm not sure what those are.
Well, yeah, so they're in the peach. James crawls into the giant peach, which is where he meets spider, ladybug, grasshopper, centipede, and earthworm.
Okay.
And then the peach keeps growing. It breaks off the stem and just starts rolling through the English countryside and rolls right into the ocean. And then they ride the peach to New York.
I'll be darned.
Is that a planned destination then, New York, or are they just kind of going wherever the peach
They're
takes
just
them?
floating along. They're laughing because that's one of the songs in the show. But no, there's not really a destination for them. They're all just kind of along for the ride.
Like we all are in life.
Absolutely. And to Sage's point, that's kind of one of the messages of the play is that no matter who you have as your family, you're always able to make your family. And family doesn't always have to mean blood. It could also mean the people who support you and care for you and help you in times of need.
Tell us about, this is a musical, so tell us kind of about the songs that are in the show.
Well, I've only seen it being run through maybe 1 or 2 times, but from what I see, the songs are all extremely upbeat and amazing songs. And you can go from a song that's the most fun you will ever have to crying your eyeballs out in a matter of 3 seconds. And I have done it. I admit. I have cried in rehearsal because of these 2 right here.
Yeah.
Sage and McKenna.
Now, I heard, and the last time I spoke to David for this podcast, that he gave you a really good scene to direct. One of the better ones, I believe, is what David said. Would you tell us about, so I'm assuming this is your first time directing. I'm doing air quotes, you can't see that, obviously. You could hear it in my inflection. So tell us kind of what you've learned being an assistant director so far.
Well, David did give me one scene where the bugs are all comforting James after he's had a nightmare about his parents again, which he has all the time, but he's never gotten any comfort about them. And they're the first ones to show him any kindness about that. And he's really giving me a lot of freedom with that. He hasn't given me any direction or anything. He's just let me roll with it.
That means you're doing a good job. Because he would stop you if you were doing badly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so I really had no idea how to direct before I came here. And honestly, I just did what David does and gave very loose direction. And then said, okay, see what you can do.
That's the secret. Your secret's out, David.
Our secret is we let the kids see what looks good. And honestly, I think it looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Is
Well,
this...
we will be the judge of that. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm really excited to see this.
So we've seen you do, Natalie, we've seen you do a lot of shows as an actor. Is this something that you've had a lot of interest in the past, directing, or is this something that you've kind of taken a recent interest in?
This is something that I've taken a very recent interest in. I asked David to be a part of the crew because I wanted, to get some of the behind the scenes as well as...
You wanted to take a break from being Juliet
Yeah.
and being in The
I wanted
Hobbit?
to take a break from always being in the spotlight. No. I wanted to see, how the other side lives, the other side of theater. And so I got an email from David a few days later, and he gave me a few options. And I was expecting him to be like, oh, can you help with, like, costume changes or something, during, like, the shows, just very small, maybe running the light booth. But he gave me 2 pretty good options, and those were assistant music director or assistant director, and
Wow.
I jumped at the chance to be
Assistant director? Yeah, that's huge. Assistant music director. So do you have an assistant music director as well?
We don't. No.
Who's your music director?
Her name's Taylor Ann Weaver. She's actually, fun fact, my ex-girlfriend. I dated her when I was 11 years old.
Until when, David?
Little David was a lady killer.
Oh, you have no idea.
Still is.
This is Taylor's first time ever music directing. She has her bachelor's in vocal performance and her master's in elementary education. Just an insane vocalist. I've known her forever and teaches 5th grade, is amazing with kids. And that's been a joy. Part of what we do at Young Artists Theater is not just for the students and the young people in our community, but we try to give new opportunities to artists across the board. So, for example, our light designer has assisted on many shows, but this is really his first big show that he's designing on his own. And it's Taylor's first time music directing, and you would never, ever be able to tell that she's never done this before. She's absolutely incredible.
That's fantastic. Who's your lighting designer? We might as well name
Miles
that
Graham.
Miles Graham.
Awesome.
I love
We
Miles.
love Miles.
Yeah, did we both just say I love Miles at the same
I
time?
think so.
He's pretty popular.
Speak for yourself, guys.
Oh, well, I wouldn't ever presume to speak for you now.
I'm kidding. Miles, if you're listening, I love you too.
Miles is good. Well, we have neglected one of my favorite designers in town, Nick. So let's talk to Nick about the daunting task of designing both costumes and set.
I don't know if so much of it's a daunting task, as let alone just time consuming. But it's actually been really fantastic being able to do costumes and scenery. This show is so intensely stylized that being my own little team of me and an assistant has been really actually beneficial because they work so hand in hand, the costumes and the scenery for this. So we are literally taking doodles and turning them into scenery. Some of the original artwork done for this story in the book is very sketchy looking. It's just really basic and fun and quick drawn. And so what we've done is taken that concept and turned it into flat good scenery, and costumes are all outlined in black doodly marker and whatnot, and then we done like a little watercolor effect to give it some color and depth and whatnot on everything. One of our big concepts for the show is making this look like a pop-up storybook, so everything is flat, which has been super fun and exciting, as well as some of the props and even costumes are flat styled, outlined in black and then watercolored looked. It's really cool. I'm really excited to actually do this effect on a show, so I'm super jazzed.
Did you do hair and makeup too then?
Have a good part of that, I'm sure. I'm sure I'll be in every performance assist, but I'm thinking that they'll be able to do it on their own. I think that was when I costumed the Hobbit. I really try to make sure that these kids could learn on their own. By the time we got to the last week, they were all so self-sufficient that they were doing it on their own. They've learned so much. So my job is to let them grow and become their own hair and makeup people.
Yeah, by the end of Hobbit, they were putting their beards on quicker than I could put my little britches on.
I would just be getting there, and they're already all hairy.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, that was the quickest 5 o'clock shadow I've ever seen.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Yeah,
have
they
to
did
say,
great.
Nick taught me well because I could get a full beard and mustache on in 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
true.
Yeah, I couldn't even put my eyeliner on that quickly.
Natalie had the most hair too, so that was
She did. She was a
Both
mess.
on my head and my beard.
yeah. So it's been a really exciting process. I'm really excited to see how it all turns out, and doing such a big show in the come and go as far as scenic. It's gonna be really interesting. The Black Box Theater we're treating as a proscenium. So
really?
literally building a fly system that slides sideways instead of up and down.
Oh, cool.
So it'll be really sweet. I'm really excited about it. It's definitely what I enjoy is experimental theater, and that's what I'm done. So I'm excited.
Now, are you leaving the audience set up the same way it is now?
It is straight on. The audience will have to walk around the sides.
So not quite.
So very similar, but not
It was the
quite.
same for Hand to God and Death of a Salesman. So.
Yep, very similar to that, just not the middle entrance.
It won't have a middle.
Yep, they have to go through the sides.
Vom.
It always sounds to me like I'm going to vom. Like it's like a verb.
Well, that's what it was for. It was
actually- yeah,
a
that's what those were for.
vomitorium, yeah. It's theater history classes. Look forward to that,
I thought it
ladies.
was, they called it a vom because that's where actors ran off to vomit.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, that would be.
That's what I was referring
Yeah,
to.
like I am going to vom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't need to go to college then. You learned everything. Right?
Yeah, you're done. That's theater history class right there.
You learn what a vom is, and you read some Shakespeare, and you're good to go.
It's true.
Done.
What out of everything that you've designed so far are you the most proud of, would you say, out of this particular show, costumes or set?
And I think the actor is pretty excited about it too, but James's socks are the best thing in the show.
Are they really?
They really are.
Did you paint
in
them?
the illustration in the book, it literally is like this swirly line that just wraps around his leg. So that's really what I've done.
I saw that in the publicity
You
photos.
can see it in the publicity photo.
I thought he was wearing like some sort of, those boots that the ladies lace up.
Oh yeah, no,
That's what
it's
it reminds me
actually it's a white sock with a black boning around it. So yeah, so vomitorium, boning, it's all good.
This is a children's show.
Please, Nick, we have children
Hey,
here.
he went there first. but yeah, no, they're super cool. The socks literally just float. The squiggly line just literally floats around his ankle. It's really cool. So I think just that concept, and then put on all the other costumes and set pieces, it just is really cool. It's like one of those things you weren't expecting, that a sock is literally just a squiggly line.
So what are you doing in regards to all the animals? Are you going pretty realistic with the animals, or are you doing sort of a human
bugs?
animal hybrid? Yeah, sorry.
Because we have animals too.
Well,
the animals are flat. Like sharks and birds, and even the birds, they're two-dimensional. And Harambe. Apparently that's the thing in the show.
Guest appearance by Harambe.
Rest in
Now
peace.
everybody
our
has
special
to see
thanks.
it. That's the key point.
Rest
Yeah,
in peace, Harambe.
that was some inside joke going on with the kids left over from rehearsal, and I came in for a production meeting, and Harambe became a thing, so I literally made one of the animals that enter the show a giant gorilla. But
these kids over
in
here
honor
are
of
just
these
like,
kids.
you must be obsessed with it. Sage is losing her mind right now about Harambe.
I actually have a gorilla stuffed animal from when I was like 3, and I recently found it and was like, I found Harambe. And then my brother laughed at me, so.
We're laughing at you too, Sage.
Because you're funny, though. That's hilarious. So as far as the bugs, like the spider.
Oh yeah, bugs, Harambe, and then the bugs. Okay, the bugs are more, since they're representative of his family and supposed to represent real people in James' life, kind of like a substitute family. Mm-hmm. They're more of a human quality, but their clothing all has features that would reminisce the bug they're representing. So they're more abstract and more almost half realistic than like creepy crawly bugs.
It's not just like a spider costume.
Yeah, no, yeah. It's just representative with real clothing with a little twist.
Well, I loved the Sponge and Spiker costumes in the publicity photos.
Those were really
the hair
fun.
and those just killed me. Are those pretty close to the original drawings from the storybook?
Yeah, pretty close. Spiker's interpreted as just this skinny character with just this black weird clothing thing on. So I literally just was like, well, I'm going to find the goofiest looking black dress I can find and then stylize it. And then Sponge, literally, she's just in the book, just this blob of blobness. And so
I knew you were going to say blobness.
That's the name.
I like putting
he-
ness at the end of
he's
things.
going to say blobness. I know.
I said blobness. It's a word. If you can put letters together and spell it out, it's a word.
Yes.
So it may not be spelled right or recognized anywhere else,
if
but blobness is a thing.
Shakespeare can
and
do it,
she
so
does
can
look
you.
blobness. So it's really cool. I love her costume. I literally just took gray dye and brush and swirled that pattern on, so it literally looks like she's been watercolored. I think it's fantastic.
David, what type of themes are we dealing with here, just for people who want to tell their kids about, once they come see it, what they can talk about back home?
Absolutely. Well, with any Roald Dahl story, I think you can't deny the power of imagination. And to kind of go along what we were just talking about with Nick, that's what kind of, as soon as Nick and I sat down to talk about the show, we were drawn by the collaboration between Roald Dahl and Quentin Blake, the illustrator. And theater is collaborative, so to take the collaboration that we know from readers of the book and translate that to the stage, and then collaborate with all these students has been terrific. But I'm really curious to hear what the actors think the themes in the play are.
Yeah, ladies,
to see if I've done my job.
Would you tell us what you think the
No
themes are,
pressure.
and then David will tell you if you're correct or not. It'd be like
I will
game
rate
show.
you.
It's a little game show moment.
Okay, well, I honestly think it's about even when, like, something bad happens, like James' parents dying, you can always have fun, because James has a ton of fun with the bugs on this journey, and even though they run into trouble on this journey on the peach, they still have fun and sing and dance and just enjoy the moment together. So
Seeing the silver lining in things.
Always
Yeah.
look on the bright side of life.
Do-do, 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 do-do.
No,
Yeah, Natalie was in Spamalot Jr.
I was the monk,
Nice.
the bald monk.
So what do you think the themes are?
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. What I've concocted from this show is really, it's about family, because as you can see, Grasshopper and Ladybug really represent James's parents, and there's a song everywhere that you are.
Yeah, I think it sounds like family is a pretty good, solid theme here. Would you agree with that then, David?
Absolutely. McKenna, what do you think?
Yeah.
I think that I just had a really good theme and then I lost it.
Was it family?
Because that's my idea.
It was, I remember now. Okay. The theme is taking control of your own life. So a really bad thing happens to James that he has no control over, his parents dying. But then he chooses to change how his life is going to end up by making the magic potion and then going inside of the peach and joining the bugs instead of just spending the rest of his life with his aunts. And I think it's about making your own happiness in life instead of relying on other people.
Wow. How'd they do, David?
They did really, really well.
Would you have anything to add to that?
No, not really. I mean, I think there's this beautiful moment that I love at the end of the show. Throughout the whole show, we see Sponge and Spiker controlling James and telling him what to do, and James just doesn't really react to them. He just goes along because they're in charge, and that's what he's supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then towards the end of the show, Sponge and Spiker try killing the bugs, and that's when James finally steps forward and says, "No, you guys are terrible human beings. Stop it." And I think that's, as they said, the power of family. And it takes this journey for James to realize that he's been dealt a pretty terrible hand, but that doesn't mean he can't turn it around and take matters into his own hands and give himself a happy ending.
So it's about realizing who your family is, and sometimes that may not be your family.
Absolutely. And speaking of family,
Dun, dun, dun,
into the room just walked Ryan Hensey, who's playing James Trotter himself.
Ryan, tell us a little bit about James real quick before we end the show.
Okay, well, James is a kid who, he was in an orphanage, and then he goes to his aunt, who he thinks are gonna be fine and nice, and then they're not. Yeah, and James is really sad, and he grows through the play by he's really, how do I say this? He's adventurous. By the end he finds family and gets happy. So yeah.
Great. So what would you say is a theme of the show? Would you say family?
Yeah, I'd say family.
Good. Well, you win that round of what the theme is for James and the Giant Peach Jr. Well, thank you all for letting us come in and talk to you today. I really appreciate it. Do any of you have any closing thoughts before we sign off for today? Oh, go to dmyat.org and get your tickets. That's my last thought.
You must have done this a few times.
Yeah, this is should be episode 5, I believe.
Just before we sign off, if you come to this show, this is just something that I feel, but if you're talking about the ants, please say aunts.
Oh, because there are bugs. It's true, and it's confusing.
It can get confusing.
Yeah, it gets very confusing.
Aunts just feels so pretentious, though.
But that's what I feel like I need to say. Aunts.
Aunts.
I mean, maybe you're pretentious.
Are there
That's
ants,
how Ryan says it.
As in the bugs, are there ants in the show as well, or is it just something that we delineate
Not
due to all the
ants,
other insects?
So there's just parents, sisters.
Gotcha.
Yes. Okay.
One final shout out. Just last month was Roald Dahl's 100th birthday. So we're very happy to be presenting this show in celebration of that right before the Playhouse produces Willy Wonka, which you'll see a lot of connections between the cast and creative team between the two shows.
Oh, that's
and
true.
You'll even see a tiny little plug for the Playhouse in our show. I changed the line, don't tell anyone, it's illegal.
Well, we might as well go ahead and
DL.
talk about the connections between the two shows as far as cast and crew, just to put that out there.
Yeah, well, Nick is designing the scenery for Willy Wonka. Natalie here is playing Veruca Salt. And Asher, who's playing Ladalord, a new character for this show, which is Roald Dahl as an anagram, is playing Charlie Bucket.
Charlie Bucket.
We've got Mr. Charlie Bucket's dad sitting over here at the other microphone, the host of the
That
show.
is me. I'll be playing Senior Bucket.
Kyle.
I don't think he has a first name. Anyway, thank you everyone for listening to this episode. Like I said, get your tickets dmyat.org. The show runs October 14th through the 23rd at the Come and Go Theater. Thanks for having us in today, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Des Moines Backstage. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. My favorite app is the Pocket Casts app. Also, if you'd like us to feature your next production as an episode of Des Moines Backstage, you can send us a message on our Facebook page. Thanks for listening.
Des Moines.
Des Moines.
Des Moines.
Des Moines.
Des Moines.
Des Moines Backstage.
Backstage.
Des Moines Backstage.
Des Moines Backstage.
Des Moines Backstage.
The Central Iowa.
The Central Iowa
The Central Iowa.
Theater Podcast.
The Central Iowa Theater
The
Podcast.
Central Iowa Theater Podcast.
Des Moines Backstage.
The Central Iowa Theater Podcast.
Des Moines Backstage.
Des Moines Backstage, the Central Iowa Theater Podcast.